So let's talk about homework. It's important to reflect on this because, as we can see, it's this independent work in these times is being extremely counterproducing because normally homework is seen as a burden by students. And if you add to that burden thought a pandemic, you're just creating yourself a recipe for disaster. Because students right now are not having time to be themselves, are not having time to be kids. They're just having time to be students. And that's not all they are. So the final thought this should give you is courses need to be designed for students to learn, yes, but also allow them to be kids, to be sons, to be athletes, to be gamers, to be whatever students want to be outside the classrooms. So another thing to think about and to reflect on virtual courses should be students being conscious of their learning style, because these courses are mostly based on independent work. And most students rely on what the teacher gives them in the class. But these virtual courses also have a part where you have to be responsible for your own learning process. And what happens when you don't understand that process, when you don't know how to fulfill this work you're asked for? So we need to think about this. Like, how can a virtual course also encourage students to know how they work as learners? And finally, I want to give a few seconds to thinking about keeping time in mind. I think this is super important because it gives the teacher the opportunity, again, to see the student as more than just a student. Because while designing, if the teacher keeps time in mind, he says, okay, how do I design this for my student to learn, but also having time for himself, for the things outside the classroom, to not feel overwhelmed by the course? So the key to these virtual courses will be having the balance between taking enough time to make sure the student learns, but also giving a space for the student to be a person outside the classroom.